Hello, hey there, hey. So, this is Kiran from Mary and the Ram, which obviously I'm by myself, and the other members of the band aren't here, so it's just going to be me. And we're going to talk about my, not top 10, but 10 big albums in my life. So they're not in any order. We're going to talk about albums that have had a massive impact on the way that I write, a big impact on me as a lyricist, as a musician, just stuff that I like to really jam out to, stuff that means a lot to me. And we're going to start off with, again, not in any order, it's not a top 10, but we're going to start out with number 1, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I like his other bands as well. I love most things that Nick Cave does. But Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, the Lyre of Orpheus, which is the second half of a 2-part album. I'm not quite sure exactly what the name is. It's Abattoir Blues / the Lyre of Orpheus. And it's an absolutely incredible, moving album. I think the most famous song on that album is probably Oh Children. It's been used in loads of things. Not least like some massive blockbusters, stuff like the Harry Potter films. But it's an incredible, beautiful piece of writing, top to bottom. Every song is lyrically on point. It's Nick Cave. It is musically, Warren Ellis and the rest of the band do such a fucking incredible job. Honestly, there are people who I would compare to Nick Cave and would say move me in a similar way. People like Leonard Cohen, people like Bob Dylan, these incredible lyricists. But at the same time, there are rarely times for me when their albums are superb top to bottom, whereas almost every Bad Seeds album that I can think of, I've thoroughly enjoyed, or it's really fucking upset me and it makes me want to kill myself. But that's probably what you want. That moving, incredible, fantastic work. Top song from that for me, it might be Oh Children. Supernaturally is incredible. Lyrically, it's pitch perfect. Messiah Ward is beautiful. And the Lyre of Orpheus itself is incredible, the song. It's just got such a sense of humour. It channels like the rage, the anger, the misery, and also the sort of sense of humour that makes Nick Cave's work human and challenging and engaging. And musically it's just a whole hodgepodge of different stuff. It's beautiful, beautiful album. Go out and listen to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Abattoir Blues / the Lyre of Orpheus. It's fucking great. Album number 2 is Antichrist Superstar, Marilyn Manson, as we know. It's fucking hard. It sounds like chainsaws for guitars. It is a anthem sort of before its time. Now's the time for Antichrist Superstar, and we're talking, this was like 1996. I'm sure you've heard it. It's Marilyn Manson's most famous album. Marilyn Manson's got a bunch of great stuff, really great stuff early on in the catalogue, but really, you're going to hear more about Trent Reznor soon, of course we are, but like, look, there's a candle over there. Seriously though, Trent Reznor's work on Antichrist Superstar brought, I thought, the sound that Marilyn Manson encompasses and that you get from a live Marilyn Manson set, it really made it feel something, I don't know, it brought something out of the tone of Marilyn Manson, and the sense of humour, but the anger of Marilyn Manson was really picked up in the production of Antichrist Superstar. And I think for me, it's hearing the difference between that and some of his other work later on, and some of Reznor as a producer's work around that time. That duo effect that they had together in the mid-90s and early 90s, I feel, was something that really made that album shine. Lyrically, it's incredible. Sonically, it's a powerhouse. It just knows what it is. It's a fantastic concept album. Top to bottom, and a lot of the stuff on this list is going to be concept albums because I'm a real concept album person. That's where I come from when I write. I don't normally write one song and then move on to the next one. I write like 5 or 6 songs that all kind of have a similar theme. And I know that's not necessarily how we put stuff out, but that's something that means a huge amount to me as a listener, is having lots of rich material to engage with. I like novels. I love big episodic series of things, and for me, these concept albums really do that, but musically. Number 3, it's another Trent Reznor project, but from much later in his discography. Of course, The Downward Spiral had a huge impact on the way that I do things, like everyone. Of course, The Fragile is one of my favourite albums, but I've picked Year Zero. Year Zero, for me, personally, is one of my favourite Nine Inch Nails records. It's totally different to a lot of their other catalogue. It's political, which, in a way, I guess earlier Nine Inch Nails material is political, but this is explicitly satirical, parodic. It's got all this stuff going on about a war in 2026 between Iran and the USA. I feel like it's quite a prophetic piece of writing. It's probably, I would say, lyrically, unless you want to talk about specifically the stuff that deals with mental health in Trent Reznor's writing, and with just cathartic emotions in Trent Reznor's writing, which he's always been really good at. And he's also really good at writing hooks and choruses and stuff that you can sing along to. For me, though, poetically, Year Zero is their strongest work, except maybe some of their later stuff and more recent stuff. But Year Zero, as a consistent album, I think has the most fantastic, experimental, both sonically and vocally and lyrically for Trent Reznor, and also well thought through concept. It's a fantastic album. It sounds totally different to anything else Nine Inch Nails put out for a very long time. Closer to some of the stuff that they put out more recently, especially the middle part of that triptych of EPs, or 2 EPs and an album, Not the Actual Events, Ad Violence, and Bad Witch. Ad Violence has some of the tones of Year Zero. And Year Zero, for me, is just a stunning album. It made me think about making work electronically. It made me think about some of the stuff that really, actually, if you listen to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's film scores, it has a lot of the same sort of sonic tones and textures in there. It's really textural, like a lot of Nine Inch Nails work, and I think that's what I love about it. 4th album is going back a little bit further. It's ELO's, Electric Light Orchestra's concept album, Time. I used to listen to that a lot with my mum when I was a lot younger, and Time, for me, is just this... it's like a precursor to everything that Muse did in sort of the mid part when Muse were really good. Controversial opinion, I guess. I really like Black Holes and Revelations, or whatever it's called. And for me, Time, the ELO album, is like, here's a template to make really fucking good sci-fi rock, I guess. It's amazing. I absolutely love its sort of Twilight. I mean, the first track's called Twilight, but I like its Twilight Zone sort of concept of this man who wakes up in another time, but it's a metaphor. It's a breakup album, I think. It's got these fantastic lyrics all throughout it about this guy who's trapped in another time, in this science fiction context, like he's gone forwards in time is the idea. It's got songs like 2095, which is about dating a AI system or like a robot. Songs like Twilight, about being on the cusp of another dimension, these sort of Lovecraftian themes of going like into this dream world or whatever. And then it's also got songs like Ticket to the Moon, The Way Things Used to Be, which is about, I think it's about Birmingham, which is where I'm from, I'm not 100% sure, I think it is. It's got these amazing like anthemic songs about being trapped in another time, but what they're really about is being nostalgic, and how difficult being nostalgic for a lost relationship is. And I think, like, when I mentioned Muse before, I think they tread this interesting line, the same sort of line that Muse do with ELO, where they can be singing about one thing, and it's very much singing about one thing, but they're really singing about like 4 or 5 things. And it's political at the same time that it is a breakup album, at the same time that it's a science fiction story. It's great. Really incredible album. I mean, sonically, it's got all these albums are great sonically, otherwise I wouldn't have picked them, but it's really, really good. Sorry, wine break. Number 5. You want to talk about sonically pitch perfect, top to bottom, every single track, not a single bad track on the album, all on point, beautifully written, beautifully produced. Number 5 is Rage Against the Machine's Rage Against the Machine, the one with the monk on fire on the front. Iconic album. Rage Against the Machine are a band that, for me, they politicised me, I think, and taught me that, like, you can be explicitly political with your music, because for me, coming from a mixed race family with Africans and Indians and white family members, something I'd never done was like really engage in my music with like race politics and stuff like that. And my experience of hip hop had been, at the point I found Rage Against the Machine, I was maybe like 12, 13. I think it was around the time the Matrix films came out because they were on the soundtrack. And I think it taught me that I could like deal with those sort of themes explicitly in my writing, which I haven't really done necessarily with Mary and the Ram. But it's not a direction necessarily that I am dying to go in, but it taught me that you could, and you could do that confidently. And also, it's the mixture of something that, as a younger man, or boy, or whatever, listening to Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and all that new metal stuff, I guess, as a much younger person, I'd been like, wow, you know, this is really cool. They're combining, to paraphrase David Firth, metal and rap, and then I listened to Rage Against the Machine and I was like, oh shit, this is what it sounds like when you really actually fucking do it well. Like, actually, it's good. It's not tacky, it's not new metal shite. Like, no offense, new metal. I know Dom, my bandmate, fucking loves new metal. Me, I'm a bit I used to when I was like 10. Not to be condescending about new metal, I just grew out of something that I liked about it, whereas Rage Against the Machine encompass all the things that I loved about new metal with a bunch of other stuff that I like the poetic, beautiful poetic writing. And there's not a single bad track on that album. It's got like most of their, except Bulls on Parade and Bullet in Your Head and things, it's got most of their like big bangers on it. Yeah, fucking great, beautiful album. I remember being sat in someone's dorm room when I was like 16, staying in student halls with all my mates who were older than me, and someone said, is there an album that hasn't got a single bad track on it? And like the whole room was like, yeah, it's Rage Against the Machine, Rage Against the Machine. So maybe that's just stuck with me. Album number 6, LCD Soundsystem. Going for a lot of albums with self-titled names. However, LCD Soundsystem is one of the single best electronic albums, multi-genre, mixed genre, whatever you want to say, interdisciplinary, sort of, maybe not. But it's got all these different styles and a consistent sound. And I've got to say, as far as electronic music goes, there's some very, very crap electronic music out there. So much of it, because it's so easy to make. There's some incredible electronic music out there, some of which is a bit impenetrable, I find, like a lot of contemporary electronic experimentation can be, it's hard to get into unless you're already into that kind of thing, or you've got a mate who's like, listen to this is really weird. But LCD Soundsystem is accessible as well, and that, for me, that was a great introduction to a whole range of stuff, and I guess it sits quite nicely with the earlier mention of Year Zero. I often think there's a lot of similarities between the electronic end of Nine Inch Nails and LCD Soundsystem. For me, it's just full of fantastic tracks, and it's got these great like 10-minute tracks on there, and you just can't put on the radio that are just incredible electronic tracks. But then it's also got these great like fucking bangers. This huge Daft Punk Is Playing at My House is such a famous song, and it comes off that album, but it's got other fantastic stuff on there as well, and some really moving, beautiful stuff on there, writerly lyrical stuff that you just might not expect amongst a really heavily electronic album like that. LCD Soundsystem are a wonderful band, and I haven't had a chance to see them live, but I'm told that they are fantastic live. So if anyone wants to come with me to see LCD Soundsystem next time they're in the UK, message Mary and the Ram, because I don't know that many people that like them, but they are great. Number 7, David Bowie album. I'm going with Blackstar. It's not had the most impact on me as a artist. As a younger person, that would be Ziggy Stardust, or there's loads of David Bowie albums that have had really big impacts on me. I think Station to Station's probably maybe my favourite David Bowie album, but Blackstar in this list of concept albums, and also stuff that have just come out of nowhere that I've gone, oh my god, this is fantastic. I think I was expecting to be let down by Blackstar, and in fact I was so impressed that it became like my album of the month or whatever. And just, it's nice to know that these people have still got whatever it was that made them the person that you grew up loving listening to, and then these ancient artists produce work like Blackstar and can blow you away still. Blackstar was such a beautiful album. I was in the studio I was listening to it, I didn't get any work done, I was crying, it was beautiful, it moved me to tears. It is a fantastic piece of writing. It's still experimental and it's still pushing boundaries, and it didn't really have to. Let's be honest, it was going to be David Bowie's last album and he knew it, and he didn't have to push those boundaries, and he did. And it feels like that's almost going back to his occult practices as a younger artist, someone really pushing themselves and their music or their artwork to see what places it can go and what doors it can open. And I feel like at the point that he was in his life when he made Blackstar, it feels pertinent, it feels poignant. This sounds like a needle drop review, so I'm going to leave it alone, but it's a fantastic album. Also, I should say David Bowie, like a lot of artists for me, has probably been one of the most inspirational artists in my life, irrespective of album. But yeah. Album number 8. There's a bit of a David Bowie theme here, but it's not a David Bowie album, but it is a Trent Reznor album, but it's not a Nine Inch Nails album, and it is a hip-hop album. Number 8 is Saul Williams' The Inevitable Rise and Liberation of Niggy Tardust, or The Rise and Inevitable Liberation of Niggy Tardust. Can't remember which way around it is. That album is what it sounds like if Nine Inch Nails produce a hip-hop album with someone who can actually write lyrics that aren't about how sad they are, or the war with Iran in 2026. Like, is there the one weird Nine Inch Nails album that isn't like any other Nine Inch Nails album? Anyway, The Rise and Inevitable Liberation of Niggy Tardust is, through and through, another album that hasn't got a bad track on it. It is incredible hip-hop writing. Mostly, I think, because Saul Williams, who is a beautiful hip-hop writer anyway and a wonderful poet, has taken most of his lyric work on Niggy Tardust from a book called The Dead MC Scrolls, which is a book of poetry, which is a lovely book of poetry. Personally, I prefer it as spoken word. I think Saul Williams is really his core a spoken word artist. But Reznor's beat making, or Ross and Reznor's beat making, and just ambient sound around that poetry is incredible. It's really hard to describe. It is not a rock album at all. It is through and through a hip hop album, but it's a mind-blowing album. It's totally different. There's nothing that sounds like it. I think sometimes Kanye wants to sound like it. I would love Kanye to maybe acknowledge... I think he's acknowledged Nine Inch Nails, but I'd quite like him to acknowledge that particular album as an influence, because you go and listen to some of Kanye's stuff, especially the stuff on like Black KKK or whatever it's called, that track anyway, and some of the stuff around then gets compared to a bunch of other things that are quite Reznor-y. I think it gets compared to stuff of Antichrist Superstar. However, it's, as an album, I think hugely influential in a quiet way. And it's not a quiet album, it's a very noisy album. It's a really beautiful, upsetting, moving album, inspiring, uplifting. It's if you like hip-hop, go and listen to it. If you like electronic music, go and listen to it. If you like Nine Inch Nails, go and listen to it. Just fucking go and listen to it. Go and listen to Niggy Tardust. It's a fucking great album. And Saul Williams has got a bunch of great albums, by the way. He seems to be mates with a bunch of interesting people like Serge Tankian and Zach De La Rocha, whatever. Trent Reznor as well, which is kind of interesting for a hip-hop artist who's not very well known. He's a great writer, beautiful writer, and his live gigs are incredible. In fact, if you get a chance to see him tour Martyr Loser Kingdom, his, I think, latest album, I want to say, I've seen him like 3 times touring that work. Go and see it. It's really good. Album number 9 is a Maynard James Keenan album. He was going to be on the list, but it's not Tool. Album number 9 is a Puscifer album. As much as I love Tool, it's a Puscifer album. And it's Is For Vagina, which is one of the single most underrated side projects that any major 90s, early 2000s artist has embarked on. I think Puscifer are incredible, but specifically they're incredible because of this album and some of the remix albums and kind of like extra material that came out around it, like C is for insert sophomoric genitalia reference here, and Don't Shoot the Messenger and that stuff, as opposed to maybe some of their other albums. V is for Vagina it meets its target that I think Maynard James Keenan set for it, if I'm paraphrasing an interview from a few years ago, which was that it was music you could dance to. You can definitely dance to it. It's groovy, it's sexy, it is really raw. It makes you want to fuck, it's great. It's like, it's just not what you expect in a Maynard James Keenan album. It's also angry, but it's got great voice work. If you are a fan of like Primus, or yeah, I know Primus suck, but like if you're a fan of Primus or like Zappa, like it's got this incredible sense of humour, very Maynard James Keenan in that respect, but also it's got this playful voice work. It's got incredible harmonic voice work that isn't just from Maynard. It's got beautiful kind of playful interaction with the subject material. I think personally, I think it's an extremely feminist album. I'm aware that everyone on this list is a bloke. That wasn't intentional. And I'm not a... Yeah, there's no Bikini Kill albums on here. There's no Alison fucking... Look, basically, what I'm saying is, I think it's a feminist album, but maybe from someone that puts like 10 albums on here all with blokes, maybe that's not the best person for it to come from. And it's also called Is For Vagina, but seriously, go and check it out. I think it's brilliant. You might hate it. A lot of people like it. It's really fucking different. Try it. You can dance to it. Put it on a date night. I dare you. It's really, really good for a date night. Maybe I have weird dates. I don't know. Number 10 is Toxicity by System of a Down. Showed me, someone who didn't have a background in punk music at all, that you can be really raw and noisy and aggressive, but also really thoughtful and, I guess, poetic and lyrical. And of course, having grown up since I was listening to System of a Down at school, I've gone and listened to the Dead Kennedys, and I think through that journey into punk, which is not really a style of music that gets me off particularly, I think something I found from that journey though is that because it doesn't like do anything for me sonically a lot of the time, it can do if it's the right band with the right writing in the right way for me. And it's also offers an opportunity to be extremely political. It's extremely accessible for people to make that kind of music. Maybe not System of a Down necessarily, because System of a Down are obviously significantly better musicians than I am, but it has a tone of you could just go out and fucking do it, which is great. A bit like grunge and a bit like a bunch of other stuff like that. You know, you could just go out and make that kind of music. It might not be as good as System of a Down, but it's not elitist in terms of the technical capability like a lot of prog is. It just happens to be really well put together. And Toxicity at school was like that and a bunch of other System of a Down albums, but Toxicity was one of those albums that, again, like the Puscifer stuff, it's very subversive. It's got these songs that seem like they're fucking stupid, like Shimmy, and then actually when you thoroughly engage with it, it's this deeply political work of art, and it's poetic, which is clearly what I like from the stuff on this list. Taught me to be political with my music, but not that I had to be at all times, not that it had to be in one particular style, and also that you didn't necessarily have to be able to sing, which is great for me, because you might listen to our music, I'm not able to sing. Maybe I am, I don't know. But yeah, Serj Tankian was a big influence on me. I just can't grow a beard, so otherwise I'd have the Zappa Serj Tankian. That should be the end, but I've got one extra album. Sorry, I've got 11. I've got an 11th album, and my 11th album is Iron Maiden. Yeah, sorry. I know. I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. I couldn't not put it on there. It's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. It's a huge concept album. It's wacky as shit. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. I love Iron Maiden. I like their big baroque guitars. I love their storytelling. I like the weird-ass way of singing that's become iconically Iron Maiden. I like how stupid and over-the-top it is. And I can't get enough. I'm an addict. It's worse than this. Iron Maiden is an addiction. Help. Please send help. I'm not even going to talk about Judas Priest. No, I don't actually like Judas Priest. But Iron Maiden, I really fucking do. And to be totally serious, actually, it's what got me into noisy-ass music with complex layers. It wasn't actually David Bowie. David Bowie got me into a bunch of arty shit. And feeling that I could be who I was and all that stuff like that everyone says about David Bowie. But it wasn't that got me into complex layers of music and big over-dramatic concepts. It was Iron Maiden, so I've put them on the end of the list. So you can cut that bit off if you want for the whatever this is going, wherever this video is going. Feel free, but you won't get my funny commentary on being addicted to Iron Maiden. So that's my top 10/11 albums. They're not really top albums. I like loads of albums. But there's my list, and I hope that if you've not listened to anything on that list, you go out and check it out, because every single album that I've mentioned on there is really fucking fantastic. So, have a good one. I'm going to drink this glass of wine and maybe write some Mary and the Ram music. I don't know. I'll see you later.